All right. So, yeah, here's the agenda for today. So, well, not for today, for my presentation. I'm gonna say hi to you and tell who I am. Then we will cover like what's automation, why do we even need the automation, what type of approaches for automation, actual types of automation. There is a very hot topic of test pyramid, which is somehow related to continuous delivery. Briefly cover misconceptions and how you can actually start automation in your company in case that you're already working, but there is no automation. This is pretty much what I did in one of the previous companies. And as that will cover like how to actually start automation without zero experience, right? So, yep, hi, my name is Dennis. I'm actually wearing the same t-shirt. Not coincidence. So this is my LinkedIn profile. I'm currently working as a principal software developer in test at Cornerstone On Demand. I'm a Scaled Agile certified practitioner, and this is the different companies that I've been working for. Like the last one, pretty much. The one on top is my current project. I'm a kind of federal guy these days, and also work for Hearst Corporation, like Cosmopolitan, probably heard about Meetup magazine, Toyota, and Walt Disney Company. So why automation and what is automation? Automation is really just the use of special software, not the actual application. So it usually leaves aside, if we're talking about functional testing, let's say, to actually control execution of tests and comparison actual versus like expected, predicted outcomes. So the major thing here is that test automation shines better when we try to automate some repetitive but necessary tasks, right? Because in this case, execution is really free because it's done by a machine. But when it comes to like manual testing, execution is always very expensive, right? Well, however, development is not free at all. It is very expensive. So the more we run, the more benefits we gain. Another thing is that we can actually perform some additional testing. Otherwise, that would be difficult to do manually. So for example, I worked for Disney and I was a part of that engineering team. And it's like just huge amounts of data. And if you try to test, like, let's say database migration from one server to another, it's pretty much just impossible to do it manually because it's just millions of records and every single character can break the stuff, right? So automation in that case is a peace of mind. And again, test automation is critical for continuous delivery. This is modern trend. All the companies really try to get there as soon as possible because from business standpoint, it's very beneficial to be able to react on the like external circumstances ASAP. So they want to really modify the application based on the like user's behavior, like within the day or even faster if possible. So yeah, this is the example of automation, right? So what about like manual versus automation? So manual, again, because it's all manual done by human, there is a human factor involved. Automation is kind of more reliable because it's performed by a soulless machine, and it really doesn't care. It doesn't get sick, well, sometimes. Manual is also time consuming, but automation, as I mentioned before, is really pretty much free at execution time. And for manual investment is required for human resources, which we all know we are in a shortage of human resources when it comes to software development teams and QAs and developers. But automation is more about like investment on testing tools, infrastructure side. Manual works the best when you just need to do some testing once or twice, but automation at the same time is better to run as frequently as possible.
I'm sorry, Dennis, could you please sit and talk straight to the mic?
Yeah, sure.
Cannot hear you.
Okay. So for manual testing, usually there is some human performing the testing or kind of observing what's going on. But for automation, it's actually a bad practice. Usually you don't even watch because it goes so fast, or sometimes it doesn't even have a UI. So there is nothing to really look at. So there are two major automation approaches. One is testing through the graphical user interface. So for example, Selenium would be the most common tool and the most popular, or Appium, which is a mobile implementation of Selenium. So it really does interact with the interface, like graphical user interface, like the actual pages, the actual windows of the application. It can clicks by a mouse or send some keystrokes, like pretty much simulating the end user, the real user. And there is another way, which is API-driven testing. In that case, there is usually no UI involved. So this type of testing bypasses the UI, and it goes really on the lower levels. And because of that, it's more reliable and much faster. So the first type of testing would be unit testing. And this is what usually developers do as a part of writing a code for application. So basically they write some other methods or functions to test their own code. And it's quite popular, especially when it comes to concepts of extreme programming, for example, and test-driven development, where they actually write tests first and then write the actual application code. So it's the focus is on tests, and then by building the application, they make these tests passing. So this is, well, it's questionable. Again, I don't want to go into too much of details, but it's kind of cool technique. Focus is on test here. So developers know about testing. There is another one, which is API or web service testing. Pretty much, there is no user interface, but all the testing going on like network interface level, messaging level. There is quite a few types. We're gonna cover them later on. And then the testing, like GUI testing. So there are two types of that. One would be record and playback. And the benefits of that, really, there is no coding experience involved in that. You can just click record and then do like whatever you need to do as a user, and then you will play back that. So you can only do that, of course, if there is a user interface. But at the same time, reliability and maintainability are not that good for this type of testing. And sometimes it just captures too much of activities that you really don't want to have. For example, if it's not really even just for GUI testing, but for JMeter, for example, for load testing, if you record the stuff, you will probably catch some irrelevant analytics requests that you really don't need. And then Selenium WebDriver type, which is really another, the alternative, I would say it's more advanced because it's really a coding. And if you want to be proficient in that, you have to actually learn all the concepts of pretty much you're a developer now. So you have to follow like design patterns and object models and all that stuff that you pretty much don't need if you're recording. It gives more control and it's better maintainable, but of course, learning curve is something that is not easy. And it has its own issues, like browser-specific issues. For example, IE has a lot of, like, WebDriver itself for IE has a lot of issues. If you want to like perform cross-browser testing, you're going to be struggling with all of those things. There is quite a few other types of testing. Load testing, for example, when I say load, I usually mean like backend testing. So it's like volume testing. So it's a system behavior under real life load conditions. So basically you're simulating hundreds or thousands of users doing something with your application at the same time. And you want to make sure that your servers will actually handle that, or at least they if they cannot handle, then at least they're not gonna do crazy stuff. Another type, performance testing, it's a page load benchmark. So it's like front end. For example, web page test. So it's really about how quickly your page gets rendered and what are the bottlenecks you have for your page. There is a security testing. You can do it manually, but you can also run vulnerability scanning tools automatically. And ETL and data testing, that one I briefly talked about. It's when you're validating the data from, let's say, from one warehouse to another warehouse. So when user interacts with your application, you want to make sure all the data gets stored properly and there is no gaps in that, nothing is lost pretty much. Accessibility testing can be actually automated as well, which is pretty big. Almost 15% of customers of any application, they have some accessibility needs. And visual testing, another one, it's usually about UI itself. So all the elements should appear in the right shape, position, no overlap and size and stuff like that. So again, it can be done by manual folks, but it can be automated also. And continuous testing, this is the continuous delivery pipeline. This concept is really to run all types of testing that you need within the delivery process, within the pipeline. So that gives immediate feedback and it decreases the time to market, which is very good thing for business. Again, it wouldn't be possible without this concept of test pyramid. So basically, this concept is about to move all the testing activities to lower levels, so they are faster and more reliable. An anti-pattern here, the one that you can see on the left, ice cream cone, it actually, you can find it in various companies. They still kind of on that level, but most of the companies, they're moving towards the test pyramid concept. And as you can see, manual and exploratory testing is up there. It should be very, very limited, really, but as much as possible, all the testing should be done by in an automated way. And even like Selenium or a GUI types of testing, it should be a very minor part of that, and it should lean towards the unit testing and integration or web service testing. So yeah, let's talk about misconceptions. Yeah, banana peel, right? So number one here is automation is here to replace manual testers. Well, tools don't test, peoples do, right? People do. So tools only helping people to test. So, well, there is still human involved. And then the second one, that everything should be automated. That's quite common in the companies. They think like, yeah, continuous delivery, it's only when you like automate 100%. And then some of them start writing unit tests for getters and setters and all that stuff. Well, yes, that's not how it works. You have to be very intelligent about like what you going about to test and what you about to automate. Some of the cases is really, it doesn't make sense at all to automate. And another one, that automation involves recording and playback. This is, I think it was pretty common like a couple of years ago. A lot of those, and actually there is a lot of commercial tools on the market that try to sell their really kind of magic wand for when it comes to automation. They just say like, because of shortage of resources, they say like, yeah, it's so hard to find someone, but if you buy our tool, all the problems are solved, which is not true. In fact, when it comes to automation, engineers usually don't even use recording and playback tools these days. So let's say you working as a manual QA and you want to start automation in your company. So I've been there. This is a kind of a plan. What should you do in order to achieve that? So first of all, you need to convince your management. Sometimes if you cannot convince your management, then pretty much maybe you should look for some other job for some other company. Really. Sorry. Because yeah, all the decision is made by the management. But at the same time, it's not like something you want to sell so hard. It's really, you should show the benefits for the company, right? It's cool for you, but there should be some benefit for company. Usually it's not that hard to come up with a list of benefits. So once you do that, they usually ask you to do some POC, proof of concept, so you can show like, well, this is like very like MVP, like minimum viable product for automation. Like it only does like login and add to cart, but at least these two the most important things for your business. So if you can show that, yeah, I can test that functionality within like 20 seconds, that would be something. But however, if you really want to do it seriously, you will probably need to find some automation experts. And I've seen a couple of companies, they've done some automation somehow, and it worked somehow, but really there is not much of benefit, and they usually try to refactor or replace the whole automation. So basically they just wasting the time and money of building the automation. So that's why it's important. Good design saves years. If you're doing automation in the wrong way, well, you may go to the bullet number one and find for another, look for another company again. And then once you do that, well, of course, you need to find right tools. There is plenty of different tools on the market, but you need to figure out what are your problems that you're trying to solve with automation. And then, of course, some of them are pricey, some of them are open source. Like what about reporting resources? For big companies, that's a big question, actually. They don't want to hire like Ruby people, for example. It's called Ruby Trap because there is not enough of resources for that. They cannot scale up as a company, which is very bad. At the same time, for example, Java, usually there is somewhat of supply on the market. And then you need to find the right application. Again, When it comes to application in companies, there are usually more than one application that you can automate, and you should find the best application to automate. Some of them just really doesn't make sense to automate. Once you do that, then of course you need to think about how to train the team, because if you're only person in the company who does the automation, you won't do much really. If you have 50 developers working on the project and you're the only automation person, you're screwed. There is no way you can keep up with all the features. So you need to train the team, and then of course create scalable framework so all those team members can contribute to that. And then after that, you need to figure out what needs to be automated, what are the priorities. So like environments, browsers, and different hardware configurations. Again, for example, if it's a web application, you should probably start with Chrome, right, as the most popular. However, it's not always true. In my company, for example, IE is the most popular browser because it's a business-to-business model. So again, maybe it's a mobile, so you need to come up with the list of mobile devices that your users use, your customers use, right? And then you actually write the script. And yeah, you need to think about reporting, because it's crucial for management to be able to see the results, how it goes, decision-making process, and yeah, all that stuff. And of course, maintenance. Once you start writing all those test cases, the number will grow with the time, and at some point, it's going to be so much, and maintenance will become a big issue. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Hopefully, once you build everything, you will find success. So it's going to be working like this, all in order. All right, thank you.
Any questions? Any questions so far? No? All right.
Yeah, go for it.
If this environment you got into, are test cases already there, or do you have to write test cases? And how do you, there's no test cases, how do you determine part of the application you're going to apply?
So, okay, so let's say if you already have test cases, then you have to actually think like what would be the most beneficial for you. Usually it would be like smoke tests. So the very like most important functionality of your website. So at least by automating your app partially, you can get the most benefit. So smoke is something that you run on every build, no matter what. So again, you're gonna run it pretty much like many times a day, right? So automation shines really. At the same time, some of the test cases you really cannot automate because you have to translate the manual style of test cases to automation. It's not equal sometimes. So it's like a different language. So let's say like Cucumber is very popular, that kind of eliminates that problem, well, not really. It actually introduces some more problems on the way. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, but if you're dealing with a wide range of the application, and say you automate smoke tests, but it takes you the level of effort for you writing up that smoke in each different part, right? It's going to be more, as you can say, and then that kind of, right? If you have no automation, then you have to design the framework and build the library, set up that, you know, okay, you write the smoke test, you still need one or two test cases, and you got those another part, you know, build that whole, you know, class and function, so you write that, and then you go somewhere else, and that's
Yeah, yeah. So you can really start if you just want to present that. You can really just record and playback in the beginning, just to show like get the results done like quickly and show the benefit. Of course, it's not like ideal solution yet, but it was relatively easy and cheap to implement, and you can get some results immediately, but then you will have to sell, like saying like, yeah, it's like something, but if we wanna do it properly, really, then we should invest more in like this and that, like building scalable framework and stuff like that. At the same time, when it comes to application itself, I would recommend you to start automation with something like mature that has less chances to change. Because if you just automating right after developers, they probably have some bugs or some of the features gonna change soon. So really, you're building the automation, but again, it's useless because it's gonna change tomorrow, and you will have to maintain or update like what's already done. So you want to keep your development effort as low as possible, because some of the test cases you don't even want to automate because it will take forever, and you will face so many issues on the way or challenges that you have to solve. Maybe you just need to do manual testing over there and forget about it for now, or maybe forever. But yeah, don't try to automate like 100%. It's not feasible. Any other questions? Yeah? Could you please repeat? I mean, it's definitely the whole agile concept really kind of forces the development team to introduce new changes and react on the market, right? So, well, yes, you have to keep up with that, and at a certain point, the maintenance becomes a problem. Sometimes in some companies, they don't even automate those features immediately. They wait for like the next release or next build. So they kind of wait for a few days or for a week so they can actually start automating and without redoing it later on, or at least they want to minimize the effort. In my company, we do it immediately pretty much, but we perform manual testing first just to make sure it's all good to go, because it's usually not good to go from the first attempt, right? So we have to go back and forth and fix some issues, but it's just a part of development process. But once feature is ready to go, at least, or to be released, then we automate it ASAP, and it's actually estimated. So it's really definition of done for the feature, for the story itself. Automation is done as well. Again, some of the sometimes you don't want to, ideally you don't want to do everything through graphical user interface, but what we do instead, we talk with developers and figuring out the way of the most efficient way of automating stuff. So if we can move some test cases down to like service level or unit testing level, we try to kind of do that as much as possible. But again, unit testing is not like you can cover everything with unit test, but it's not like real world scenarios, right? Everything is so every single type of testing adds up to quality, but you cannot just say like I'm gonna write unit tests unless it's just some kind of library and there is nothing else. Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions for how will somebody learn somebody have to experience with it?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the question was like where to start with Selenium. So I think Azat will actually cover that pretty much right after me. So I'm gonna gonna keep it for now.
All right.
That's it.
I think that's it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.